make it in the end. Oh, don't give up. Tell your neighbor, tell your friend. Alright, don't give up. Ooh, we're gonna make it in the end.
Hey, one man.
The following program is intended for mature audiences.
We're on a mission from God.
The tragedy of life is not death, but what dies inside you while you're still alive.
You're listening to One Man from Ohio.
The only place where one man gets a word in.
One man. Let's hear it for one authorized.
Governments are supposed to protect our liberties. Once they decide they're going to make us safe, economically and physically safe, they can only do this by taking away our liberties. Those pictures really concern me. That is such a visual image when you see thousands and thousands of troops, and they weren't your local friendly policemen that were involved. I mean, can you imagine all these people being lost? They became prisoners. It was accepted too easily. It was martial law.
But Lawrence O'Donnell took exception to that, and he very strongly called Ron Paul a liar repeatedly on his show for what he said about the way the police conducted themselves, going house to house, pointing guns at people in windows and houses, dragging them out of their houses at gunpoint, going down the streets in armored personnel carriers with full police riot gear.
Wait, I want to show pictures first. You know what? Show some of the pictures of the Boston police, okay? Look at this. I mean, if this is what you have, why don't you invade a country? Show some of the other ones. I mean, go up to Canada, take their oil. Look at these. These are half tracks. I mean, I don't care what you might want to call it an urban assault vehicle, but this country is becoming a police state, and it is very troubling to me.
We believe that's very excessive. We believe that that is setting a template for martial law to be gradually eased in, and so does Ron Paul. But Lawrence O'Donnell called him a liar. He said from the very beginning to say that this was forced is a lie, that the governor was just simply telling people to shelter in place, and it was a suggestion.
Police don't need warrants. Families thrown out of their homes at gunpoint to be searched without probable cause. No guns were pointed at any families. What a vile lie. There were no tanks and there were no police pointing their weapons at innocent citizens.
Well, when the government points a gun at you and suggests that you do something, we call that force. And they may call it something else, but they're just playing with semantics. We wanted to add to the pictures that people have already seen, pictures that were already there when Lawrence O'Donnell called Ron Paul a liar. So we sent Dan Badandi to interview residents and tell us what they experienced during this excessive manhunt. And here are those interviews.
A cop pointed his gun at me, and then they called SWAT in, and then SWAT came and picked me up by a shield, and they threw me in the back of a car and then dropped me off in the middle of Newton.
They dropped you off in the middle of nowhere, and what time of night was that?
What time was that? Like 5? Yeah. Broad daylight. Just dropped me off, took me out of the cuffs, and told me to walk.
And when they put the cuffs on you, did they read you your Miranda rights? Oh, you were unlawfully detained from being on public property.
Yeah.
Did they ask to search your house?
They told me they wouldn't search the house.
No, they didn't ask you, they just told you?
They told me they wouldn't come in and search.
And did they command you to leave your home?
They told us we had to leave, yes. One thing I was very, very upset about is that when we were leaving here, the lights were on in the house, TVs, you know, and back door, they had gone to the back door down my basement, and they told me, I said, let me just close all my doors and lock up, and they said no, they would do it. I came home. Back door was open. This is hours now later. Back door was open, front door was open, basement door was open. Lights were on, TVs were on. No one did anything.
So they basically left your house unsecured, but the doors wide open while nobody was home?
Yes, they did.
And you say there's bullet holes in your car here?
Yes, there's a bullet hole here.
Make them shut it up.
And there's a bullet hole here. It shot out the window on the side there. And in my car, there's a bullet hole. As you can see, I don't know where it is. Maybe it's in the car somewhere. I have no idea. But the back window's blown out and the side window's blown out. What they did, they disrupted this entire world for a day.
We initially got a report from the police department that it was voluntary searches, but then after talking to the residents, we found out that they weren't asking if they could have permission to enter homes. They were just forcefully entering people's homes to search.
So did they knock at your door or just walk in?
They knocked the door, but you know, I mean, the door, they almost pushed the door through, not me.
And did they ask you to search your home at all, or they just did it?
They just did it, you know, they just came in and they went through.
And did they command you to leave your home?
Yes. We left, and they say, let's lock the doors. They say, no, we'll take care of it. We'll lock your doors and everything. We came home midnight, and everything was open. And nobody was around here.
So they left your house also unsecured and wide open.
Exactly. And nobody was around here. Protects anybody. Anybody can walk in.
They mistreated the elderly then, right?
Yes. Yes, you know, I didn't like that. You know, like I said, they tried to do the job, you know what I mean? No. But on this point here, I got very upset. Very upset.
Did they ask to search your house or they just searched?
They wanted to search the house, but my grandma said nobody was in there, and then they proceeded to ask my grandma for my uncle lives upstairs, and the house is a deadbolt, and my grandma said, no, there's no one up there. I didn't hear anyone go up the stairs, but they still made her give the house key and unlocked it with that key and searched upstairs and all the way up to the attic. Well, they didn't want to give the key back, but they ended up giving the key back. They did.
And did they command you at all any time to leave your home or stay in the home?
So it was stay inside. But the thing overall that caught my eye is that my friend on Franklin Street lived across the street, and the army people did a huge search in their garage. But the boat was directly across the street. They didn't search the boat, not once. They didn't even go around it.
That's where the younger brother was found.
That's where the suspect was. And it's funny because the police didn't find him when they did the thing. The person finally got to leave their house because they said everyone stay inside. He left his house and saw the blood on the boat.
We, had to go through multiple checkpoints. We were searched ourselves. Other journalists on the scene were told to lay on the ground as they were searched. So it was a very, very touchy, very intense situation to be in.
Matter of fact, when we woke up, a big shootout that was coming from Vietnam. It was looked like a Vietnam song. Those guns that were going left and right.
Yeah, well, your neighbor's house is still here.
Oh, we did
I
the door. We got a stone door.
They passed my stone door and the door upstairs, yeah.
But it was almost on this side. Yeah.
They would have get me in my bedroom.
Oh,
yeah.
That's when you're sleeping, too. Were guns pointed at you at any time, and did they tell you to put your hands up in the air or anything?
Not me, but my boyfriend.
Oh, your boyfriend had his hands up in the air and they were searching him?
Yes, because he came out to check his diesel in the back of his truck.
They were pretty much right here in front of my house, and they were just shooting down that direction. That went on for a couple minutes, and then there were two more booms, with the last one just really lighting the entire neighborhood up. It shook the house, set off all the car alarms.
And, did they make you put your hands up?
When we came out, we put our hands up and they searched us. But other than that, we just walked out.
And did they ask you at all to search you?
Yeah, they asked. They told us that they were going to be searching us. Told us that they were going to be searching us. Told us that they were going to be searching us. Told us that they were going to be searching us.
When I grow up, I want to be a DJ.
Think the Jews knocked down the towers?
I think so.
Oh,
because I know they guns and airplanes.
Well, since you know so much.
Because I know about everything, because I know.
You've been down on the street.
I hate them.
Right. Well, that's terrible.
Do you know any Jews?
Jews? I got Jews live where I live at. I hate them all.
But do you know any Jews around here?
Oh, plenty more.
Well, who are they?
Identify them.
The hijackers. That's what I know.
The hijackers are Jews.
But can you
That's
spell?
right.
Can you spell Jew?
I can spell Jew. L-E-R.
Right. All right.
I love Bosco. It's rich in chocolate tea. Chocolate flavored Bosco is mighty good for me. milk for extra energy. Bosco gives me iron and sunshine vitamin D. Oh, I love Bosco. That's the drink for me.
Next stop, the Twilight Zone.
Folks, stand by, if you will. I want to get to our chief intelligence correspondent, Catherine Harrigan. Catherine, you were among the first to put into our urgent queue that David Petraeus has, in fact, submitted his resignation letter. And what have you learned since then, Catherine?
Well, what I've been able to learn, Trace, is that there was a chain of events this week. I was told that there was a major meeting that was set up at the CIA for Thursday of this week. It did involve bringing some principals in from out of town, and that the meeting was canceled at short notice because Director Petraeus had to take a meeting with the president. Now, what would be a standard operating procedure here is that his deputy would take that kind of meeting, but I was told the issue was such that it could only be taken by the CIA director. What I just learned from an intelligence official a short time ago is that it was on Thursday that the CIA director asked the president if he could submit his letter of resignation for personal reasons. I was not told anything more than that. And then today that letter was accepted by the president. While the request was for personal reasons, I think we need to lay out a couple of things that have happened just in the last few weeks alone. I was also told today that there was considerable angst about a briefing that was given by the CIA last week, which laid out their timeline or their version of events of what unfolded in Benghazi, and specifically the emergency response in Benghazi. I was told, was it possible that the White House did not sanction that and the White House did not approve of that timeline because it in effect said what happened there was not our problem, it was someone else's problem. The other thing to consider, as we first reported here at Fox, is that there really was a disconnect between what lawmakers saw as the raw intelligence about Benghazi, which pointed towards a terrorist attack, and the briefings they received from the CIA director within days of that attack. If you can just stay with me, let me lay that out for you. Just a couple of days after the attack on 9/11, I was able to confirm that the FBI and the National Counterterrorism Center were briefing to lawmakers that the evidence supported, and these were telephone intercepts, that it was an Al-Qaeda or an Al-Qaeda-related event. And then the following day, the CIA director went up to Capitol Hill and briefed that it really did seem to be a demonstration that had spun out of control like a flash mob, and that the origination was this anti-Islam video. This disconnect really upset lawmakers who felt that there was other intelligence that pointed to a terrorist attack, though General Petraeus seemed to downplay that in his briefing. In addition, I'm told that the attack in Benghazi not only created concern about the murder of the ambassador and those 3 other Americans, but it also created great angst about the exposure of the depth and breadth of the CIA operation in Benghazi, which is largely an operation that is focused on getting these Stinger missiles off the battlefield, if you will, in Libya and out of the hands of extremists. So again, what we know right now is that he asked to be released for personal reasons. We need to take that at face value until we know otherwise, but you have to see that statement in the context of those 3 factors I've just laid out.
Yes, and Catherine, back to you quickly if I can. So it now has been confirmed that General Petraeus did have an extramarital affair. That's why he's resigning. It's rare, Catherine, a lot of things that we've seen for someone to come out and get ahead of the news curve and kind of get this thing out in the open and then resign before anybody even had wind of the affair itself. Accurate?
Well, I think you have to take it at face value because that is the statement, but again, you have to see the resignation. If it is for personal reasons, as he states, you have to see it in the context of the timing. It's coming before, I would argue, probably the biggest set of briefings and hearings on Benghazi that we will have on Capitol Hill, certainly before the end of this lame duck session. And number 2, this comes really in the midst of what one may consider one of the greatest controversies of the CIA in the last decade. When I have been speaking to people about Benghazi and the closed hearings next week, they talked about this on the scale of WMD with Iraq, that this was such a significant blow to the agency, the exposure of their presence, and really pushing them out of eastern Libya. So again, he says it's for personal reasons. I think we accept that at face value, but we have to see it in the context coming before these hearings. Not clear who will take his place at those hearings. And number two, in the context of the last 2 months and what has been very vocal dissatisfaction from some lawmakers on Capitol Hill with the quality of the brief and the presentations from the CIA director on Benghazi, Trace.
Brett, good evening. Secretary of State Kerry told House lawmakers earlier this month he doesn't want to spend the next year coming to Capitol Hill to talk about Benghazi, but new charges from within his own department could make that a reality. Fox News has learned that at least 3 career State Department employees and at least 1 more at the Central Intelligence Agency have retained lawyers or are in the process of doing so in order that they can provide sensitive information to Congress about Benghazi. The 4 consider themselves whistleblowers and want their counsel to receive the security clearances that would enable them to review classified documents. But the lawyer representing one of the employees at State told us the department is not providing a process for that, and even worse, is actively threatening her client and the others.
I'm not talking generally. I am talking specifically about Benghazi. That people have been threatened, and not just the State Department. That people have been threatened at the CIA. It's frightening, and you're taking career people and making them well aware that their careers will be over.
It was on September 11 that 4 Americans, including our ambassador to Libya, were killed in terror attacks on U.S. installations in Benghazi. Tunsing said her client has pertinent information on the months preceding the attacks when pleas for enhanced security were rejected, on the 8-hour span of the attacks themselves, and on the 8-day period following the attacks when the Obama administration falsely described them as the result of a spontaneous protest over a video.
So, if you have additional questions or you think there's some document that somehow you need, I'll work with you to try to get it.
Secretary of State Kerry told lawmakers this month that Obama administration officials have testified at 8 Benghazi hearings, held 20 Benghazi briefings, turned over 25,000 pages of Benghazi documents, and released an unclassified version of the report prepared by the so-called Accountability Review Board. Today, Kerry's spokesman insisted all standard procedures have been followed in terms of cooperation with Congress.
I'm not aware of private counsel seeking security clearances or anything to that regard. I'm not aware of whistleblowers one way or another. Congress has its own prerogatives, but we've had a very thorough, independent investigation, which we completed and were transparent and shared, and there are many folks who are in a political manner trying to sort of use this for their own political means or ends.
That was a jab at Republican Congressman Darrell Issa of California, chair of the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee, who wrote to Secretary of State Kerry last week, and I quote, "The department's unwillingness to make the process for clearing an attorney more transparent appears to be an effort to interfere with the rights of employees to furnish information to Congress," unquote. That threat is obviously a charge the administration rejects.
James Rosenlaw from the State Department tonight. James, thank you.
We have some big news to get to this morning because we are now learning more about the people behind the whistleblower accusations that have been coming out of the Obama administration. Were they allowed to speak? Were they told to keep quiet? What information did they know as the Benghazi event was unfolding? We now have names associated with these individuals.
We broke this news yesterday on Fox and Friends that there are in fact 3 whistleblowers who are being represented by a pair of attorneys pro bono in Washington, Joe DeGeneres and Victoria Tenzing, and the names of these whistleblowers are Gregory N. Hicks, who's the Deputy Chief of Mission at the U.S. Embassy in Libya at the time of the Benghazi terror attack.
And let me stop you right there for a second, Tucker, because he's important, because he is the person who was on the phone with Ambassador Chris Stevens during the time of the attack. And apparently what he's going to say on Wednesday, and some of what we know from him, is that Chris Stevens was saying, we're under attack, please help. And of course, nothing was done to help.
For 7.5 hours. I know this took place 8 months ago, and some of the details have been lost, I think, during that time. But this consulate was under attack for 7.5 hours, and there was no response. There was no aid sent by Washington. Pretty unbelievable.
And another individual who will testify as well is Mark I. Thompson. He's a former Marine and now the Deputy Coordinator for Operations in the agency's Counterterrorism Bureau. And Eric Nordstrom, whom we've already heard from, a diplomatic security officer who was the regional security officer in Libya at the time, and a top security officer in the country in the months leading up to the attacks. Senator Lindsey Graham talking about what we can expect to hear from Gregory Hicks, to your point, being on the phone, and what he says we're going to hear is going to be chilling. Listen.
You're going to be surprised to hear what he says about the interaction between him and Washington. He's the number 2 guy. He was Chris Stevens' deputy. He was on the phone with Chris right before he died. He's going to give you a chilling story of what it was like and how little help he received. And he's going to tell you about how he felt when he heard Susan Rice write this off to a spontaneous riot caused by hateful video. Everybody there knows that that was a complete political smokescreen. This is not the fog of war. She was not confused by the fog of war. This White House, 7 weeks before an election, tried to continue the narrative that bin Laden's dead, Al-Qaeda's receding in terms of influence and power, and Benghazi destroyed that narrative and that storyline, and that's what this has been all about for a very long time. Keep in mind, doubtless, defenders of the president will say, well, these whistleblowers are motivated by some kind of political animus. These are people who work for the Obama administration in career capacities. They are not political appointees. They weren't put there by George W. Bush. They're not Tea Party activists. They are, I think in every case, lifelong federal employees who expose themselves to a lot of risk to serve this country.
Part of what their lawyers have said is that the Accountability Review Board that was supposed to look into this and conduct an internal investigation of what went wrong the night of Benghazi, the Accountability Review Board says that they called all the witnesses that were important and they have gotten to the bottom of it, and that it was just a tragedy that really couldn't have been prevented. There were too many, all of our help and aid and Special Forces teams were too far away to scramble that help that night. Well, 2 of these folks, not Eric Nordstrom, but the other 2, say that they were basically rebuffed by the Accountability Review Board. They wanted to share their stories, but they weren't asked or invited to. So now they have new information that they say has never been publicly heard before. Eric Nordstrom, you'll remember, has been, you've perhaps heard from him. He was on the stand at the committee in October, but he has more information that he wants to share. This is the video from October. He gave very compelling testimony then about how he and Ambassador Stevens had asked for months, saying that the security situation was deteriorating and they wanted backup, but it wasn't available.
And we still don't know exactly what happened. I mean, back in Washington, we know the president did not call anybody in Libya. We're pretty certain of that. But beyond that, we don't know because the White House has not released an account of what the president was doing during those hours that our consul was under attack and our ambassador was being murdered. In contrast to the hours preceding the killing of Osama bin Laden, the White House told us everything about that. That was one last thing. If you see the pictures, we put them up in the last hour, of some of the men apparently responsible for these atrocities, they don't look like randoms in a crowd from some soup. They look like professional soldiers. I don't know how you could, there they are right there. Look at these pictures and tell me if those look like members of a spontaneous crowd mad about a YouTube video.
Well,
no, they don't.
I mean, to your point, part of what is chilling about these pictures is they all appear to be carrying.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And not rocks or Molotov cocktails, but AK-47.
Meanwhile, the attorneys for one of the whistleblowers had said that this, all signs point to a cover-up when they're speaking to Geraldo. Take a listen.
They are prepared to tell their stories truthfully and candidly. And one thing that will come out of this, Geraldo, that will be a great disappointment to a lot of people who work in government, the Accountability Review Board that was conducted by Ambassador Pickering and Admiral Mullen will be proven to have been a cover-up, one of the worst jobs ever done in the history of governmental reporting. The Benghazi report by Pickering and Mullen is a cover-up.
4 Americans dead. We need justice for this. 4 Americans dead. We need justice for this.
I bet there's spiders down there.
Bug problem got you down? Call Dale's Bug Service at 555-2288. We also take away old ladies if you have problems with them, too.
Dale, what you want me to do with this girl?
Earl, put her in the bag. Put her back in the bag.
But we have the evidence, and it's the evidence from U.S. official sources at the highest rank. The evidence of the exact chain of circumstances which led into the killing on 9/11, that is on September 11th of this year, of the conclusive evidence provided by the relevant voices, documents of leading people in the U.S. government service. But the official voice has put a lid on the discussion of this issue.
Obama!
And so that's what we face today.
Obama!
To date, since the New York and Washington, D.C. attacks of September 11, 2001, the United States has lived under a Republican presidency and currently a Democratic presidency who protected the interests which made those attacks possible. The operation would be virtually impossible, save the illicit finances funneled via a brokered deal between British BAE Systems and Prince Bandar of the Saudi royal family. Tens of thousands of dollars utilized by two of the 9/11 hijackers for shelter and flight training lessons directly traced to Prince Bandar of Saudi Arabia's personal bank account, a fact that should have led to further investigation, but never did. What did occur was a cover-up. The cover-up continued under Barack Obama. The cover-up which served to keep the networks of global terrorism alive. The cover-up that led to the death of U.S. Ambassador Christopher Stevens on September 11, 2012. The events of Benghazi were not the result of an ignorant mistake. They are the result of Barack Obama's policies, as they were of his predecessor, and as they were of the man who ran both presidencies, Tony Blair. In truth, the last 12 years never saw a Republican or Democratic president occupying the White House as such, but an imperial presidency committed to British and Saudi enemy interests. More than a year has passed since the uprising, 5 months since Gaddafi was killed. In late December 2011, reports indicated that the Al-Qaeda leadership in Pakistan had sent experienced jihadists to Libya to build a new base of operations in the country. Between May and December 2011, one of these jihadists had recruited 200 fighters in the eastern part of the country. Documents seized in Iraq indicate that many foreign fighters who participated in the Iraq insurgency hailed from eastern Libya. This small batch of fighters would have been dealt with quickly by a central authority were it in place. Until a stronger national army or guard forces developed, rural Libya will remain fertile territory for terrorist groups, such as Al-Qaeda and the Islamic Maghreb. That report was submitted in March of 2012. What follows is the escalation of events in the region leading into the September 11th attack. April 6th. 2 Libyans who have been fired from a contractor providing unarmed static security for Consulate Benghazi threw a small improvised explosive device, IED, over the consulate fence. Early April, unknown attackers rolled a grenade under a UN vehicle during a visit to Benghazi. April 11th, a gun battle occurred about 2.5 miles from Consulate Benghazi, involving anti-aircraft guns and RPGs. April 25th, a U.S. Embassy local guard force officer traveling in a diplomatically plated vehicle was detained and his embassy-issued radio seized at a militia checkpoint. April 26th, while a Foreign Service officer stationed at Consulate Benghazi was attending a trade event, a fistfight escalated into gunfire between security forces for the trade delegation and militia providing security for the venue. The U.S. Foreign Service officer was evacuated by members of the 17th February Martyrs Brigade, a Libyan militia stationed at Consulate Benghazi. April 27th, 2 South African contractors were kidnapped by armed men while walking through a residential area of Benghazi. May 1st, Deputy Commander of Embassy Tripoli's local guard force was carjacked, beaten, and detained by a group of armed youth. Libyan security forces fought a gun battle with the assailants in order to recover a number of stolen vehicles and release other detainees. May 22nd, 2 RPG rounds were fired at the Benghazi office of the Red Cross, less than 1 mile from Consulate Benghazi. A Facebook posting that claimed responsibility for the attack said, "After we confirmed that the Red Cross was giving out the Bibles to refugees in Benghazi, a group of mujahideen attacked the headquarters of the Red Cross with an RPG, and it targeted the meeting room inside the building. We didn't want to hurt the Christians, it's just a warning. We also didn't want to hurt any Muslims working there." So the Red Cross must take down their flag and close its offices in Libya. We announced that Libya is an Islamic state. Finally, now we are preparing a message for the Americans for disturbing the skies over Derna. June. Ambassador Stevens was in the habit of taking early morning runs around Tripoli along with members of the security detail. According to sources, sometime in June 2012, a posting on a pro-Gaddafi Facebook page trumpeted these runs and directed a threat against Ambassador Stevens along with a stock photo of him. June 6th. Under cover of darkness, assailants placed an IED on the north gate of conflict Benghazi, blowing a hole in the security perimeter that was described by one individual as big enough for 40 men to go through. Later the same day, grenade attack on a British vehicle at approximately 11:45 p.m. 2 hand grenades used by an unknown person to target a marked British diplomatic vehicle parked outside of a hotel. Then, RPG attack on British ambassador's convoy, 2 security officers injured. After this string of incidents, the British consulate in Benghazi was shut down. All diplomats were removed from Benghazi, and to this day, the British have not reopened that facility. There was another bombing attack in June on the Red Cross headquarters in Benghazi, as the result of which the Red Cross, which is famous for operating in the most difficult frontline combat situations around the world, also shut down their entire operation in Benghazi. June 10th. On or about June 10th, 2012, a 2-car convoy carrying the British ambassador to Libya from a conference on reforming Libyan military law was attacked in broad daylight by a militant with an RPG. This attack was an important escalation in the violence against Western targets in Benghazi, as prior attacks had been at night and were often preceded by warnings from the attackers. Late June. The Red Cross building was attacked again, this time in broad daylight while people were inside. June 25th. Ambassador Stevens wrote a report. Libya's fragile security deteriorates as tribal rivalries, power plays, and extremism intensify. Stevens comes to the conclusion that the Libyan government has been unsuccessful with any kind of reliable security. August 6th. Armed assailants attempt to carjack a vehicle bearing diplomatic plates operated by U.S. security personnel. An August 2012 report commissioned by the Defense Department, Al-Qaeda in Libya, a profile, is released. It reads, Page 2. Ansar al-Sharia could be the new face of Al-Qaeda in Libya. Page 3. Various militias from throughout Libya are thought to make up the bulk of Al-Qaeda's network in Libya, as indicated by the attendance of the first gathering of groups supporting Sharia held June 7th through 8th, 2012, at Liberation Square in Benghazi, hosted by Ansar al-Sharia. Page 18. Al-Qaeda will probably refrain from using the Al-Qaeda name and instead may use other names, such as Ansar al-Sharia or simply Mujahideen. August 8th. Another document from Ambassador Chris Stevens, The Guns of August, Security in Eastern Libya. Since the eve of the elections, Benghazi has moved from trepidation to euphoria and back, as a series of violent incidents have dominated the political landscape during the Ramadan holiday. These incidents have varied widely in motivation and severity. There have been abductions and assassinations, but there have also been false alarms and outright fabrications. The absence of significant deterrence has contributed to a security vacuum that is being exploited by independent actors. Obama! In the final weeks of August 2012, the unarmed Libyan guards employed by British contractor Blue Mountain were being warned by their family members to quit their jobs guarding consulate in Benghazi because there were rumors in the community of an impending attack. There were extensive warnings that were provided in advance by the American government officials on the scene in Libya as to the fact that the situation was of grave danger. September 10th, Al-Qaeda chief al-Zawahiri, in his annual message on the eve of the anniversary of 9/11/2001, called for attacks on Americans, especially in Libya, in retribution for the drone murder of all Libyans. As of September 11th of 2012, the only Western flag that was flying actively in Benghazi, the only active diplomatic presence in the city of any Western country, was the U.S. consulate. Everybody else had pulled out, because clearly the security situation had become completely untenable. The Obama administration later claimed that there was, quote, no actionable intelligence. As the attacks occurred on September 11th, 3 emails were sent out from Benghazi consulate, according to the current public record. They went to multiple points in the State Department, the FBI, the Director of National Intelligence, several locations at the Pentagon, and the White House Situation Room. The first arrived in Washington at 4:05 p.m. Washington time. Subject: U.S. diplomatic mission in Benghazi under attack. The regional security officer reports the diplomatic mission is under attack. Embassy Tripoli reports approximately 20 armed people fired shots. Explosives have been heard as well. Ambassador Stevens, who is currently in Benghazi, and 4 personnel are in the compound safe haven. The 17th of February militia is providing security support. The Operations Center will provide updates as available. There was an unarmed surveillance drone that was in the air over the compound, over the consulate, and also nearby a mile away in the CIA annex. There was live streamed video from these drones coming back to Washington at this time. As the cables came in from the consulate and the video was streaming, Obama was then in the White House. In fact, at 5 o'clock that afternoon, he met with Defense Secretary Kennan and Vice President Biden. And later in the evening, Obama spent an hour on the phone with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. About 50 minutes later, a second cable email came into the same list. Update number 1. U.S. diplomatic mission in Benghazi. Embassy Tripoli reports the firing of the U.S. diplomatic mission in Benghazi has stopped, and the compound has been cleared. A response team is on site attempting to locate comm personnel. Nothing in any of the cables mentions large crowds of people showing up at the consulate to protest the mission. This initial report, which was the basis on which the CIA went into action, contained no references to any video or any protest. Then, the last of the documents made public that came from Tripoli to Washington on the afternoon, as events were unfolding, simply says, Update: Ansar al-Sharia claims responsibility for Benghazi attack. Embassy Tripoli reports that group claimed responsibility on Facebook and Twitter and has called for an attack on the embassy in Tripoli.
We also need to understand that this is a fairly volatile situation, and it is in response not to United States policy, not to, obviously, the administration, not to the American people. It is in response to a video.
Obama! As Americans, let us never, ever forget that our...
September 12th, Obama delivers a speech in the Rose Garden, mentioning nothing of a terrorist attack, visits the State Department, does an interview, then flies to Nevada and Colorado for fundraisers. September 13th, Obama attends another fundraiser in Colorado, flies home. September 14th, Obama and Clinton receive the remains from Benghazi. Obama later hosts 2 celebrations.
My colleague from the Associated Press asked me a direct question: was there any intelligence suggesting that there would be an attack on the U.S. consulates? Then said that a story, referred to the story as being false, and said there was no actionable intelligence. But he didn't answer the question. Was there any intelligence, period, suggesting that there was going to be an attack on either the embassy?
No intelligence that in any way could have been acted on to prevent that. These protests were in reaction to the that had spread. We certainly don't know. We don't know otherwise. But we have no information to suggest that we planned attack on the unresident.
September 16th. 5 days after the attack, the President deploys UN Ambassador Susan Rice to 5 different Sunday morning interview shows to say that this was not a terrorist incident, that this was a spontaneous mob upsurge, an angry reaction to a video that probably very few people in Libya even knew existed, given the chaotic conditions in the country. On the week of the 16th, Obama appeared on the David Letterman show, The View, and after that, appeared before the world community in his address before the UN General Assembly, where he continued to divert attention away from the fact that the U.S. consulate had been targeted for a terrorist attack by known networks. Was and is Obama involved in cover-up? Yes. But this cover-up didn't begin with Benghazi. It began the day Barack Obama lied to the faces of the 9/11 families who trusted Obama's pledge that he would release the 28 classified pages revealing the Saudi Arabian and consequently British role carrying out the terrorist attacks in Washington, D.C. and New York City on September 11, 2001. Obama indeed went to great lengths to legally deny the families of 9/11 victims the right to sue members of the Saudi royal family and government on the grounds of sovereign immunity. President Obama, from the first day of his presidency, did exactly what George W. Bush maintained throughout his: protect this British-Saudi network. Because of it, 4 high-ranking Americans are now dead, including Ambassador Christopher Stevens. We, as Americans, can and must eliminate this network, but we cannot eliminate it as long as Obama remains in the White House.
I can feel the bass and it's making my nose bleed. I can feel the bass and it's making my nose bleed. I can feel the bass and it's making my nose bleed. I can feel the bass and it's making my nose bleed. I can feel the bass and it's making my nose bleed. I can feel the bass and it's making my nose bleed. Don't bite the hand that feeds, expecting to succeed. Don't bite the hand that feeds, never doubting to believe. Don't bite the hand that feeds, expecting to succeed. Don't bite the hand that feeds, never doubting to believe.
That's all, folks.
We kill communism.
Oh, wait.